The studio was buzzing with a kind of electric excitement that only live television could produce. Cameramen adjusted lenses, stagehands whispered last-minute cues, and the audience, a mix of longtime country fans and casual viewers, leaned forward in their seats. On the big screen behind the set, the words "Today with Jenna and Friends" glowed in soft pastels, the kind of cheerful branding meant to put guests at ease. Blake Shelton walked in from the wings wearing his trademark grin, that easygoing Oklahoma charm radiating in every step. His denim shirt was crisp but casual, the top button undone, paired with faded jeans and boots that looked like they'd actually seen a dirt road or two. The audience erupted in applause, and Jenna Hager greeted him with the kind of warmth reserved for guests she knew would keep things light and fun. "Blake Shelton, everybody," Jenna beamed, motioning for him to sit. "You are a busy man these days. New tour, a hit single, and, I have to say, your Instagram is hilarious." Blake laughed, leaning into the mic clipped to his collar. "Well, I've got to do something to keep myself entertained on the road," he said, his voice that familiar blend of humor and sincerity. The first few minutes went exactly as planned. Light jokes, stories from the road, a playful dig or two at his The Voice co-stars. The audience laughed at every punchline. Jenna nodded along, teeing up each topic like a softball, and Blake hit each one out of the park. But then, the conversation took an unexpected turn. Jenna's smile softened, her voice adopting that slightly more serious tone that signals a shift from banter to something meatier. "So, Blake," she began, "you've been in the country music industry for a long time now. And I know a lot of fans, and even some artists, have been talking about how country music has changed. Some say it's more pop than country these days. Do you feel like the heart of country music is still the same?" It was a question Blake had answered before, but today something in his eyes flickered, the kind of flicker that meant his patience was already running thin. He leaned back slightly in his chair, crossing one boot over his knee. "You know," he said slowly, "I think there's a lot of talk out there from people who want to stir the pot. But for me, music is music. If people like it, that's what matters. I'm not in the business of policing what's real country." Jenna nodded politely but didn't let the moment slide. "Sure, but do you think the younger artists, the ones topping the charts right now, are carrying on the traditions that artists like you, or George Strait, or Reba McEntire, built?" The air shifted. Blake's smile tightened. He took a sip of water, buying himself a moment. "Look, Jenna, I've been around long enough to know that every generation thinks the next one's doing it wrong. It's the same in every genre. I'm not here to tell some 25-year-old kid that they're not country enough. That's not my job." The audience stayed quiet, sensing a tension that hadn't been there moments ago. Jenna tilted her head, her tone still warm but edged with persistence. "But don't you think fans deserve to know where you stand? Especially since you've been such a strong voice for traditional country in the past." Blake's jaw shifted, just slightly. The charming twang in his voice sharpened. "I think fans deserve music they love, and they can decide for themselves if something feels authentic. I'm not gonna sit here on national television and throw my peers under the bus." From somewhere behind the cameras, a producer made a subtle hand gesture, the kind that usually meant wrap this up and move on. But Jenna pressed on, perhaps sensing that she was on the verge of a headline-making moment. "Blake, I get that you don't want to criticize anyone, but do you ever feel like speaking out about the direction of the genre might actually help keep country music grounded?" The country star's laugh was short and humorless this time. "Speaking out, huh? I've learned that when you speak out in this business, people twist your words and you spend the next 2 weeks cleaning up a mess you didn't even make. I'd rather just keep playing my music and let everyone else argue about labels." The audience murmured, not loudly, but enough that the tension became tangible. Jenna glanced at her notes, clearly trying to decide whether to back down or double down. "All right," she said finally, but you've always been someone who says exactly what he thinks. And I think our viewers love that about you. So if you had to sum up the state of country music in one sentence, what would you say?" Blake stared at her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. "I'd say the state of country music is just fine, Jenna. And if people spent half as much time enjoying it as they do picking it apart, we'd all be a lot happier." The statement hung in the air, heavier than it should have been. Jenna gave a quick, tight smile. "Well, that's certainly one way to put it," she said, her voice just a touch higher than before. They moved on to a segment about his tour schedule, but the easy laughter from earlier didn't return. Blake answered politely, but the sparkle in his eyes was gone, replaced with a guarded caution. Jenna kept the conversation moving, but every so often, her gaze flicked toward the producers, as if seeking confirmation that she hadn't pushed too far. The audience clapped on cue, but it wasn't the same thunderous applause from before. There was a subtle hum in the room now, the unspoken awareness that something unscripted and unpredictable had crept into the show. Behind the scenes, a floor manager scribbled a note to the control room: "We might have a problem." The shift from lively banter to guarded politeness was subtle but unmistakable. Even viewers at home could feel it. In the control room, a tense silence replaced the usual cheerful chatter of producers and camera operators. Every second felt longer than it should. Jenna, though still smiling for the cameras, adjusted her posture ever so slightly, the kind of small shift a seasoned host makes when she knows a conversation has wandered into dangerous territory. Blake sat back in his chair, his hands loosely clasped, his gaze darting between Jenna and the studio audience. He answered the next question about his tour dates with clipped brevity, his trademark easygoing humor now absent. Jenna, sensing the strain, tried steering the conversation back to lighter ground. "So, Blake," she said brightly, "I heard there's a funny story about your tour bus breaking down outside of..." But Blake didn't let her finish. He chuckled, a low, dry sound without a hint of warmth, and interrupted, "You know what? I think we're done here." The words hung in the air like a lightning bolt. For a moment, no one seemed to process what had just happened. Jenna blinked, still smiling but with a flicker of confusion in her eyes. "Done here? Oh, you mean with..." "No," Blake said plainly, leaning forward to unclasp the small microphone from his shirt collar. "I mean done. Like, I'm out." Gasps rippled through the audience. The camera operator instinctively zoomed in on Blake's face, catching the firmness in his jaw and the set determination in his eyes. This wasn't a bit. This wasn't a stunt. Jenna's co-host, sitting a few chairs down, tried to jump in with a lighthearted, "Oh, come on now, Blake, don't go all cowboy on us." But Blake was already on his feet, brushing imaginary dust from his jeans. "I'm not mad," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "I just don't feel like we're having the kind of conversation I came here for." The audience murmured, torn between awkward fascination and secondhand embarrassment. A few people even laughed nervously, thinking maybe this was an elaborate scripted moment. Jenna's professional smile stayed plastered on, but her voice betrayed a tiny edge. "Well, we're sorry to see you go if that's your choice, but..." "No hard feelings," Blake said quickly, raising a hand in a sort of casual wave. He turned toward the audience. "Thanks for coming out, y'all. Hope you enjoy the rest of your morning show." And with that, he walked straight toward the side of the set, his boots clicking against the polished floor. A stagehand scrambled to guide him around a camera rig, nearly tripping in the process. Jenna tried to recover, her eyes darting to the teleprompter. "All right, well, we're gonna take a quick break." But the control room wasn't ready. The feed stayed live, and America watched as Blake disappeared behind the set, the camera catching just a glimpse of his denim shirt vanishing into the wings. A hot mic caught him muttering something under his breath, though it was too muffled to make out. Only then did the producers cut to an emergency commercial break, a cheery ad for breakfast cereal that felt jarringly out of place after what had just unfolded. The moment the cameras were off, Jenna exhaled sharply. "What was that?" she said to no one in particular, her voice low but audible to those nearby. Her co-host leaned in. "I think he felt cornered. That music question. I wasn't attacking him," Jenna replied quickly, shaking her head. "I was just. Doesn't matter," the co-host said. "It's already trending." And they were right. In the minutes following his abrupt exit, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok lit up like wildfire. A studio audience member in the third row had already uploaded a shaky phone video of Blake pulling off his mic. The caption read, "Blake Shelton just walked off live TV. What just happened?" The hashtags appeared almost instantly. Hashtag Blake walks, hashtag Today Show drama, hashtag mic drop moment. Within 20 minutes, the clip had been shared by several country music fan accounts, each adding their own spin. Was Blake Shelton right to walk out? And Jenna pushed too far, or did she? Meanwhile, in the green room, Blake sat on a leather couch, still holding the mic pack in his hand. A production assistant hovered nearby, unsure whether to take it back or give him space. "Do you want someone to call your driver?" she asked cautiously. Blake let out a long breath and handed over the mic pack. "Yeah, let's just do that." He didn't look angry anymore, just resolute. Back on set, the show returned from break, Jenna smiling once again for the camera. "Welcome back," she began, her voice steady but slightly tighter than before. "Well, that was unexpected. We love Blake, and we wish him the best on his upcoming tour." She pivoted quickly to a segment about summer recipes, but the audience's minds were clearly elsewhere. Online, theories about the clash were multiplying. Some defended Blake, saying he was right to walk away from a conversation that felt like a trap. Others accused him of being thin-skinned, unable to handle tough questions. A few conspiracy-minded commenters even claimed it was all a publicity stunt to boost ratings for both Blake and the show. By noon, major entertainment outlets had already picked up the story. Headlines read, "Blake Shelton storms off morning show after heated exchange and tense moment between Blake Shelton and Jenna Bush Hager goes viral." Clips of his exit looped endlessly across social media, dissected frame by frame. Some slowed down the moment he unclipped the mic, speculating on whether he muttered something like, "I'm not doing this." Others zoomed in on Jenna's face at the exact moment she realized he wasn't joking. The show's official Twitter account posted a carefully worded statement. "We had a great time chatting with Blake Shelton this morning. Sometimes conversations take unexpected turns, but we're always grateful for our guests." The tone was diplomatic, but it didn't stop the flood of comments beneath it. By late afternoon, Blake himself posted a short message on Instagram, nothing personal. "Just not in the mood for the drama today. Love y'all." He paired it with a picture of him holding a coffee mug outside his tour bus, a faint smile on his face. But the internet wasn't letting go that easily. Memes began circulating, placing Blake's walk-off in absurd contexts. Him walking out of Thanksgiving dinner, him walking away from a bad Tinder date, him walking off set after someone says pineapple belongs on pizza. The clash had transcended the show itself. It had become a pop culture moment. And whether or not Blake ever returned to Today with Jenna and Friends, the footage of him strolling out of the studio, unbothered and unapologetic, was now cemented in the internet's collective memory. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of the NBC building, a producer was already drafting the next morning's meeting agenda. How do we handle the Blake situation?